Excellent. Welcome everyone to the ninth session of the Applied Urban Modeling Symposium 2020, or AUM 2020. And I'm Ying, and I'm the convener, and on behalf of all the members of the scientific committee and the co-conveners, I would like to welcome all of you to this session. And in this ninth session, we continue the themes that Professor Jeff Hewings and Professor Alex Annas have started in the last session, which is focusing on the economics of cities. And this time, we're going to look at practical applied models of large city regions. And we're going to deal with particularly two big city regions, one in Greater Beijing and the other one in Greater Paris, or actually Ile-de-France. Now, what I would like to do at this point is to hand over to our chair, who is Dr. Mingfei Ma, who has been working as a senior consultant at David Simmonds Consultancy, and also at part-time at the University of Cambridge, working with us in the cities and the transport research group. And Mingfei has been a modeler and of large city regions. Particularly, she's known in modeling the Greater Beijing city region in models of green belts. And Professor Paul Cheshire from LSE always call her the Greenbelt lady now. And I'm really pleased, Mingfei, that Zoom has now enabled you to come out of the maternity leave actually to chair this for us. Now, Mingfei, to you. Yeah, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our conference. I'm Dr. Mingfei Ma. As Ying said, I'm a senior consultant in David Simmonds Consultancy. Meanwhile, I'm also working with Ying since 2012 for the Greater Beijing model and for the Cambridge model. So today, we're going to have two fascinating papers to present, both of which are the applications of urban models in metropolitan areas in different parts of the world. So the first one is the model in Greater Beijing, while the second one is to do with Greater Paris. So the first paper will be presented by two speakers. Professor Mao, who is a professor in Tsinghua University in Beijing, and he's also the director of the Center for Human Settlement Studies in Tsinghua University. And Professor Mao, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening. I'm very glad to join this UM conference and with my colleagues together to present Greater Beijing. I'm a university professor and also the urban planner to attend a lot of practice, but not too much for the modeling. The modeling is expert is my colleague Liang, and also the Ying and Mingfei. So I will start my presentation with open this story, and Liang could continue going to the modeling detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mao. And the second presenter for the same paper, for the Beijing paper, is Professor Zhao, who is associate professor in urban planning, also in Tsinghua University in Beijing. And he is the lead modeler for this Greater Beijing model. So Professor Zhao, would you like to say something about yourself?
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Mingfei Ma, and thanks, Ying. And it's a great honor for me to have this opportunity to share some research with all of you. And you know that Sorry, what?
Yeah, we can hear you, but if it'll be better if you speak louder.
Okay.
Come closer to the computer.
Closer to the screen. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
To my microphone. Yeah. I'm from Tsinghua University, and it's for me. The work with Ying maybe about 10 years. Yeah. In 2011, I've been to Cambridge as a visiting scholar and start my urban modeling work from 10 years ago. And now we use the RIC model from Ying in the Beijing TOD development research. So today I will share the research with you, and thanks again. Okay.
Okay, so before I hand over to Professor Mao, just to remind our audience, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions, you can type into the Q&A box, and we will answer those questions after the presentation. So now, Professor Mao, hand to you.
Mingfei, it's also our custom to introduce the second paper speakers as well before we go on to the presentation, right? Yeah, go on. Yeah, this is just the format.
Okay, so just another thing before I introduce Sylvie is actually there are another two authors for the first paper, which are Ying himself and Dr. Li Wan from the Land Economy Department in the University of Cambridge, who are also among our audience. And thank you for reminding me. So the second author, also for the second paper, Sylvie Gader is also, so we can see her, I think, from the screen. And she is a practitioner, as she calls herself, and she's the director of the firm Stratec in Belgium. And she has more than 20 years of experience in practice in the field of travel demand modeling using different tools, including routing models and the declared preference service to do the modeling work. So Sylvie, would you like to say something about yourself? You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you to Professor Jin for inviting us. You said already much about me. So we will present a work in progress on the Grand Paris Express project that we are carrying out with a whole team in the Stratec Consultancy, which is based in Brussels, Belgium, and where I am a project manager, not the director, not the manager of the company, but just project manager. And we are carrying out a project together with Tomás de la Barra, who is the developer of the Tranus model. Thank you.
And also, there are another two co-authors for this paper. They're Matilda and Tomás de la Barra, who the authors of the famous urban modeling package, Tranus, which is also used in this Greater Paris model. So we'll see how it was used later in the second paper. So now, let's start our today's presentation with Professor Mao.
Thank you. And we will start to share the screen now. Okay. Can you see the screen in the moment?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everyone. Thank you for your joining this conference, and I will opening first the report, Greater Beijing, Understanding the Intervention for a Low Carbon Metropolis. But I only gave the first part for introduction on Beijing urban development. Because the situation is still very rich and complicated. So I hope this brief introduction could give you the more focus for the Beijing the urban development. And here is the city of Beijing, and the city with 3,000 years history, and strategically siting between the mountain range to the north, we call the Yanshan Mountain, and to the west to the Taihang Mountain, and belong to the North China Plain facing the Bohai Sea. However, this strategic setting also causes a serious thermal inversion, which makes the local air current at least capable of dissipating air pollution. Like day and tomorrow, Beijing also meet a new very serious air pollution due to the weather and due to many other industry and vehicle reasons. And this is Beijing, and the old city is in the central area, and the space is less than 100 square kilometer. But today, the second surrounding the near suburban is full of the population with more than 1,000 square kilometers. I think most of our research is focused in the second region, and this the total region for the city of Beijing for the municipality, and has more than 16,000 square kilometer with more than 21 million population currently, according to the official statistics. And in fact, maybe even more people already living in this area. And if you, from the satellite image, you will see from the 1970s until now, the built up land area increased double and redoubled. Today is already more than 3,000 square kilometers, like the picture. And if we look at the city from the Google satellite image, and in the past few years, the air pollution programs in Beijing and the surroundings have been dramatically reduced, and the city is currently targeting the program of low carbon transport and urban living, which are among the hardest to resolve of 2060 carbon neutrality that the Chinese government just promised. And if we look for the changes in emission-related air pollution indicator for Beijing motor vehicles in about the last 10 years, and we saw all like the PM2.5, PM10, and NO2 all reduce a lot. And the data maybe is useful data maybe from the 2013, and they reduced step by step according to the Beijing Ecological Environmental Bureau report. And the population in this period still continue increased. And in Beijing, we calculated the population have a few ways, with the permanent residents, the urban population, the registered population, like the people have the hukou in this city, and we have a permanent immigrants, and also still a part of about 3 million, we call it the rural population, but they in fact already have the living standard the same in the urban area. And the economic development very quickly in recent years. This for the per capita GDP calculated by the permanent residents, it means about 20 more million people in last 10 or 20 years. Today, the average per capita is increased from the 30,000 Chinese yuan RMB in 2002 to in the last year already 164,000 Chinese yuan is equal to about 22,000 US dollars per capita. And following, we saw a few pictures about Beijing. This inner city of Beijing, the modern and the tradition buildings combined together. But in large part of surroundings, the high-rise and the modern buildings, it's more and more developed. And this picture related with the metro in the city. And from the center, in the first, you have the traditional shaped the buildings. This the Qianmen Gate with the subway station, and the second one is in the corner of the city wall. We call the Qizhi, the rail station combined with the metro station together. And the low picture is suburban in one of the largest residential area in north of Beijing called Tiantongyuan. We can see combined with the bus and the subway systems and the road system together. And still, we meet a lot of traffic problems, passenger problems, especially in the peak hour. And these commuters eager to use every possibility to get the transport from the center of Beijing. This the Guomao area is in Beijing, a little bit east of the old city is the CBD area. So every morning and evening in the rush hour, this the situation. And from the history, and we can see since the Chinese have the new China start from the 1949. The planning work is continue going on. These two pictures show two famous professors in Tsinghua University. One is Professor Liang Sicheng, and he graduated in US UPenn in 1920s, and another is Professor Chen Zhanxiang. He graduated from the UK in 1930s or 40s from the University of Liverpool with Professor Sir Abercrombie to learn architecture and urban planning. They present the idea of we call the two city concept. Is the same in the protect the old part of Beijing and develop a new urban area, new urban center. But unfortunately, the Chinese government finally decided is centralized the pattern of city of Beijing start from 1950s, and you see the ring road around the old city of Beijing, and this urban master plan in 1954 is officially approved by the central government, and in the 1958, the new idea from the group development of the urban pattern with many linkage with the railroad systems, and this the master plan of 1983 is continued in this moment. The urban transportation with the urban population growth, transportation requirement increase, and the road systems and metro systems as a development the following. And but at the beginning, the subway is built very slowly. It's a start from the 1970s, but until the end of year of 2000, still very short distance. But since we applied the Olympic game in year 2008, fast urban development during the first decade of 21st century. The transportation systems is dramatically developed very quickly with the whole city metro systems. And this picture to show the latest urban master plan and to forecast in the coming years and how decentralized the population and urban functions, and to build even the big region to find new solutions. The following is two main planning picture. One is for the regional trunk road network and the main highway harbor planning map. In the coming future, you will see the ring road urban pattern and with express the motorways and the main highway systems in the northeast part of the city of Beijing, and in the southeast part of Beijing, and in the north and west, main is the mountain area and be protected. And this picture to show the regional passenger transport hub system planning map. And we will see, and in the coming future, the rail systems combined with the regional by the two important airports and other some the railway and highway systems will help the passengers quick go in and go out with the city. And here is the central urban area road network, and you will very clear to look. We have the second ring road, the second ring road, the third ring road, the fourth ring road, the fifth ring road, and the sixth ring road outside. And the main the road systems and finished, but in some branches, the local road still some problems. But since there are about 20 million people living and concentrated in this area, many traffic needs still should find a new solution. And the new solution, in this moment, the city is focused for the urban rail transit. This is the latest planning map, and the dark color line is existed, and the blue color line will be built in the future. If we combine the first Beijing subway plan in 1980s, we will see in that time it's very limited with 8 subway line together, 266 kilometers in 1980s master plan. But the new master plan will build a green plus a smart transport system, increase about from the now is nearly 1,000 kilometers combined with the subway and suburban rail, and in year of 2035 will be reached to the 2,500 kilometers the rail system. And the city is today is looking for the green traits, and this table to show from the year of 1986 to in the 2019, the green share the travel model with in the moment about 74% combined with the subway, buses, bicycles and work, and the cars and the taxis and others with it's only the 25% in the moment. And the city looking for continue use more the green transport. And in the last year, composition of the green model share by trips is in the short distance from 0 to 5 kilometers will mean by the walk, cycling, and less by taxi, cars, and buses. But start from 6 to 10 is belong to the middle or long distance until even for the subway line, subway and bus and private car will increase their share. This still today is a mode of trip share, and we will continue develop the metro, the subway, and the bus systems to help the people and to solve their trip needs and to reduce the traffic jams in the future. This first part of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
If we don't have any clarification question at this moment, Professor Zhao will just hand to you to continue the first paper.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, no problem.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes. If you switch to the presenter, brilliant.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Mingfei. And the topic of the presentation is understanding the potentials and the challenges of subway developments for a new low-carbon metropolis. And this research is carried out by a joint team of Tsinghua and Cambridge. So now thanks Ying, Jin, and Li Wan very much for their excellent model applied in Beijing. And thanks all the colleagues from Tsinghua and Cambridge too, together with Beijing, local authority, and company. So my presentation includes 3 parts: background, and some answers to several key questions, and finally, the conclusion. First, let me introduce the current situation and demand of Beijing. Beijing is a rapidly developing city with a population of 23 million. It is facing many urban problems such as transport congestion, air pollution, and loss of green space, just mentioned by Professor Mao. Now at present, 19 subway lines together with 345 stations are in operation, and a mega subway network nearly 1,000 kilometers with 550 stations are planned and constructed till 2035. But the current share of subway travel is not that high. In the main urban area, subways only carry about 16% of the total daily trips in 2018, including walking. The main urban area, including 6 districts, is about 1,500 square kilometers. And just to please see the right picture. And I will define a central city area, mainly within Ring Road 5, for our research. So what is the policy objectives of Beijing government? First, to build a polycentric urban structure through the development of suburban new towns and decentralization of the central city. Secondly, they want to integrate land use and rail transit through a TOD model to achieve sustainable development and reduce urban congestion. Then, they want to increase land use efficiency around subway stations to accommodate more residents and jobs. So we try to give reasonable answers to some key questions. First, the scope. So what is the appropriate spatial scope for developing and implementing an effective density and land use strategy around subway stations in Beijing? So how large is the scope? Now, this is the first question. Second, classification. How to classify the variety of subway stations in terms of location, land use pattern, and network property. And the third, socio-economic impacts. What is the impact of enhancing TOD at different spatial levels? And the last one, how could the urban form look like after increasing building density around the subway stations by the method of urban design? So the 4 questions, it's main work in the past 1 year. So the first question is the total, the scope, the total passenger flow throughout of Beijing. This one. The total passenger flow throughout of Beijing subway stations are significantly correlated with surrounding employment, and they are also correlated with surrounding residential population and the FAR of commercial and office buildings in the catchment areas. We use the data with 400 meters ratios. The left chart shows the correlation between total number of passengers, X, which is in the X-axis, and number of jobs within 400 meters ratios, which is on the Y-axis. So we can see a linear correlation between the 2 factors. And we collect mobile phone trace data from one of the biggest mobile operator, China Unicom, and choose subway line 4 as an example. This line is a rich radio line that runs north-south through the old city, the rest of central city, and the new town of Daxing district. Different colors in the right picture means the amount of passengers who check in and out the subway stations in area 400 meters grid. We can see that the subway travel within a radius of 800 meters, accounting for about 50% of total. And the incidence of subway travel fall rapidly beyond 800 meters. And it should be noted that about 1/4 of the total subway trips originate from or destined for 2 kilometers away from the station, which involves access by bus, taxi, and bicycle. So we believe the subway station catchment area in Beijing is 400 to 800 meters ratios. It will be effective to optimize land use and density within the catchment area. And the second question, the land use strategy should be diverse in different station area. So the second question is how to classify hundreds of stations. For current 309 stations, 6 factors are chosen for cluster analysis, including transfer capacity, centrality, total FAR, proportion of residential land, office land, and retail land. We have the result of 6 categories. This method is used for all planning stations. We got the right picture. The stations are classified by location, including outer suburb, inner suburb, and central urban. A main function of land use, including residence and employment. And two additional categories are added. One is city center stations such as CBD, which is red on the map. The other is special stations in conservation areas of Beijing Old City, Green Belt, and transportation hubs such as high-speed railway station, which is green in the right map. And the third question is, what are the socio-economic impacts of enhancing TOD at different spatial levels? So now thanks Cambridge team again for the recursive spatial equilibrium model. As a new model with distinctive roots in established urban models. What is new of RSE Beijing model? The first, model calibration and validation over multiple time periods to fine-tune and validate the model. Model calibration for years 2000 and 2010, run model in prediction mode for 26 and 28 to validate it. And second, recursive predictions of building stock constraints, locations of non-employed residency in the city region. The third, transport supply and travel time assumptions to account for user adaptation. And the final, the last, Hickson utility functions to account for the tendencies for residents to resist force in consumer utility as housing rents rise in an affluent city region. So this is a model I'll show you. And the RSE Beijing model covers the entire Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei province megacity region, which with the subway station catchment areas separately identified. So the number of model zone is about 700, including the station zone, 420 station zones. The scenario test starts from a base year of 2018. We can see the job density, employed residence density, and the wage decrease from central urban to outer suburb gradually. And further development assumptions for Greater Beijing to 2035 are made according to the master plan of Beijing and observed trends in Tianjin and Hebei province. Average annual growth of job is 1.0%, and average annual income growth is 5.1%. Growth in floor space is assumed as follows. We did a multi-scale analysis, city level, single subway line level, and single station level. At city level, we focus on the city-wide effects on the size and the spatial distribution of populations, urban spatial structure, and commuting patterns. And at single subway line level, we want to find the effect on job housing balance and property rents along a selected single subway line and the surrounding areas. At station level, we did scenario simulation to analyze the spillover effects on property rents and the local commuting patterns near selected subway stations. So the first scale is city level. In city level simulation, we set 4 scenarios. Scenario 1 is baseline scenario under Beijing and Land Use Plan 2035. No special interventions in station areas. And scenario 2 is policy-oriented growth in all stations, which means growing building stock concentrated in all stations. Scenario 3 is policy-oriented growth in 120 suburban stations only. And the last scenario 4 is growth in 17 selected suburban stations only. study area-wide building stock growth remains constrained. The result of simulation shows that scenario 3, that means suburban station priority, will reduce local commuting distance by 5 to 15%. And scenario 4 means selected station priority will reduce local commuting distance by 10 to 20%. Because the total amount of floor space is concentrated across the study area in all scenarios, increasing business floor space development around suburban stations will serve to attract jobs away from the central city by 1 to 5% compared with the baseline. Compare the middle and right pictures. In the suburbs, concentrated development around 17 selected stations can prevent the urban sprawl along the 6th Ring Road in Beijing. In single line simulation, we test 3 scenarios, as one is also the baseline scenario, which is the same in the city level. In scenario 2, gross FAR increased 20% in 3 selected stations in Pinggu district, in Pinggu New Town. In scenario 3, policy-oriented growth in all stations in Pinggu line. The result is enhancing station catchment. Development for the Pinggu line will boost jobs, residents, and housing rents. Although not all stations respond the same way, this will relieve development pressures in the central city, especially jobs. It is shown in the middle picture. The green and blue color means job reducing in central city. Pinggu line will also reduce the average commuting distance, which is showed in the right map, in particular for suburban locations along the subway corridor. And compared scenario 2 and baseline, the impact on Pinggu New Town is particularly significant. When we compare scenario 3 and baseline, we can find larger effects along the whole line. And the impact on Tongzhou Municipal Sub-Center is the greatest among all the stations, thus contributing to the city-level strategy to expand east. The right map shows the Tongzhou, which is will have the significant effect. And the third scale of simulation is single station. Beijing have selected 37 station sites, which are suitable for development in the near future as TOD pilot sites. The red dots are these stations. Scenario 1 is same as other 2 scales. Scenario 2 is a scenario in which FAR increase only. While in scenario 3, we not only increase FAR, but also use all additional floor space growth as business function. And in single station simulation, the result shows that compare scenario 2 and scenario 1. Let's see the left picture. We can find FAR boost at pilot sites promotes employment growth in the immediate neighbors, but would cause displacement in other zones further away. According to the location and the social economic situation, pilot station areas have different population and employment growth elasticities. For employed workers, elasticities When the office floor space increase by 1% in station area, the employed worker will increase by 0.91 to 1.15%. When the housing floor space increase by 1% in station area, the employed residents will increase by 0.96 to 1.21%. So it have different elasticities. And compare scenario 3 and scenario 2, increasing business floor space provision at pilot sites will attract employment from the surrounding areas, while increasing housing rent in the surrounding areas, increase average commuting distance at pilot sites, but reduce commuting distance for the neighboring areas, which is showed in the 3 maps. So model-based scenario analysis suggests that 20 to 50% gross FAR increase based on the baseline in the station catchment areas would be a significant impact, would have a significant impact, which means that the station areas will have an average gross FAR from 1.2 to 1.4. But what does the urban form look like when the gross FAR is 1.2 to 1.4 in Beijing? We do some urban design work in Pinggu Station, just like this picture. The site provides mainly residential services, and the gross FAR is 1.3, as same as we have suggested. And this picture is Ganjiakou Station area, which have low density garden hotel, many 6-story houses, and about 20 stories office buildings, and benchmarking against a highly popular existing neighborhood in the central city. And the Ganjiakou Station area has a gross FAR 1.22. Maybe the same as what we have done in Pinggu Station. We believe urban scenes will, with gross FAR 1.3, will be acceptable. And when we discuss this with officers of Beijing, they also think it is acceptable in new towns in outer suburb in Beijing. And how about 1.4 for gross FAR? We designed the Cigezhuang Station in Daxing New Town as a sample. The building height and the density are lower than Wudaokou Station. This is Wudaokou. The building height and the density are lower than Wudaokou Station area, which is near Tsinghua University. And we think urban scenes with gross FAR 1.4 will be better than Wudaokou. And Wudaokou FAR is 1.6. This area is lack of green space and have low density of road network. So now the conclusion. Recent mobile phone trace data shows that the main subway station catchment areas in Beijing range from 4 to 800 meters in reaches. According to Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei RSU model simulations, concentrated and boosted floor space growth around suburban subway stations can help relieve the population pressure in the central city and can promote the balance of job and housing and shorten local commuting distance along the subway lines and improve the land value in the suburbs. And Beijing doesn't have to adopt an ultra high density strategy as Tokyo or Hong Kong. and should consider an appropriate density given its particular context and growth aspirations. For subway station catchment area, a gross FAR of 1.2 to 1.4 not only can improve the land use and infrastructure efficiency and promote the sustainable travel, but also achieve a higher quality and more attractive cityscape, and which is shown from the urban design of the two sample station areas. And it is expected that several suburban centers will emerge and emerge in Beijing, the process of which may now be accelerated by the pandemics. An enhanced and tailored TOD strategy, together with efforts of reviving the tradition of low carbon travel, can set up a new model for sustainability for cities facing similar development challenges in the developing world. So that is all for my presentation. Thanks and welcome your comments. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Professor Zhao. Thanks for this holistic presentation from very large regional planning scale to urban design scale. So now here is a question from Professor Marcel Eschenig, and you can also see it from your Q&A box from the bottom of your screen. So the question is, what is the modal share in terms of passenger kilometers? And also, what is the average distance of trips? So,
yeah, wearing my other hat as a contributor to the paper, I could say that Beijing has the longest commuting distance in all the Chinese metropolitan areas. And Professor Mao might actually know the most recent data. It's about 13 kilometers per trip. Is that right? Correct? Mingfei?
Yes,
you have
it's
worked
correct. And we get the latest report from the municipal transportation committee in the last year, and we divided for the commuters and the living trip. For the commuters, and the distance between 10 to 15, and the living trip, the 1 to 5 kilometer distance. This only based on the limited the household the survey to get these two data. And especially in Beijing, we have more than 6 million cars and vehicles. And the private car trips in the working days generally more than 40 kilometers per day, and divided for the 3 or 4 times, and average one-time trip for private car in working days is 10 to 15 kilometer distance. This is the latest report data. Thank you.
yeah. So I'm also literally checking my thesis, which was done in 2016, but it quoted some old numbers for the modal share in terms of passenger kilometers in 2012. That's about 50% in bus in terms of passenger kilometers, and 25% for rail and other metro mode, and about 20% for car. And for the distance, it's just as what Professor Mao said.
Well, one of the questions that the audience will be very interested in is actually what is currently happening with the Beijing's public transport system and how people are coping with potential risks of the pandemic, or actually it could be an aftershock at the moment of looking at these issues. Can either Professor Mao or Professor Zhao comment on the current experience in Beijing and to give people an idea of how the city is recovering from the pandemic?
Oh. 赵亮有回答吗？
Professor Zhao seems to have fallen off the Zoom link at the moment.
And your questions is really related with the people.
For example, are people currently using the public transport? And for example, around the university, I presume that students are still being strictly controlled so that they cannot travel outside the campus very much. But can university professors now travel?
Yes, the university professor can travel freely with his university, but cannot freely visit other universities. So every campus is controlled by themselves. This first. And I think you raise a very important issue is since the COVID-19 started, the public transportation get a very big challenge. And that is why I just mentioned that the private car used much more than before COVID-19. And some people think this part will quickly reduce the private car use, but the recent report is the car sold in the number is much increased compared before the COVID-19, and but hopefully the new energy car was sold much more than before.
Yeah, and Beijing is one of the cities that has experimented with this new battery supply by changing batteries for taxis, right? So lots of the taxis are now able to run for the whole day with probably 1 or 2 changes of the batteries in there. And in terms of the current pattern of the contemporary Beijing, of the developments in the 4th and 5th ring roads and so on, the patterns are very much like Los Angeles in many ways. And if you look at the statistics there, it's very much like Los Angeles as well in terms of travel. But within the 4th ring roads, then the statistics is more like what Mingfei has just quoted. I think that data of the dominance of cycling, public transport, and so on, it's very much within this area. Is that correct, Professor Mao?
Yes, the government push people use the new energy vehicles, and one important policy is carried out already a few years. That is, if you use the gasoline, and the car will be stopped 1 day per working day in a week. But if you use the new energy car, there is no stop to drive in any days as you want, especially within the 15th ring road, the central area. So more and more people today, they hope they have 2 cars. One is the gasoline car to go the long distance, and one is for the daily use within the 5th ring road. Thank you.
That's been the situation in lots of the households that are buying, who are buying the electric cars in Britain as well. So it's very much regarded as a wife's car because it's for a smaller distance and running around the town. Something that has happened even to Henry Ford's wife in the 1930s. And Henry Ford actually bought his wife, Clara Ford, a car which was a battery-powered car at that time.
And this the situation push the people, if they getting rich, they will have a double house and a double car, according to which day you're living in the suburban and the long distance, and your working day in the downtown in the short distance.
Yeah. Well, in that context, the proposals and the scenario tests of the presentation by Professor Zhao just looks so interesting. It's not the end story, but this is the start of a very ambitious program of trying to address people's mobility needs, and at the same time to see how there could be a transition to a lower carbon use for urban transport, which is probably one of the hardest questions for China going forward. And Mingfei, I can see that you are a little worried because I think the time actually has come to the second presentation. Yeah. I'm handing over to you except saying that we really are very, very grateful for Professor Mao and Professor Zhao to make this presentation, because in Beijing, this is now midnight or just past midnight. And then I'm not certain that they are able to stay on the session until 1 o'clock. So if you're not able to stay online for this time, in fact, Professor Zhao is having a problem of internet at the moment, then what we could do is to relay the questions to you. And also Dr. Li Wan, who is now a lecturer in land economy, has also significantly contributed to this work. And again, he's away doing teaching this afternoon, and therefore we will relay questions to him as well. Mingfei, over to you, so that you can then start the second paper.
So, okay. So actually we just got another question from Professor Joe Ferreira. So yeah. What do you think? So shall we just answer one more question, or we just pass to the next one?
We could still have time, because we started a little later as well. So answer this question and then perhaps we finish.
Professor Mao, could you see the question that's from the bottom of the Q&A box? Because it's
yes, I can see. And maybe after the presentation, we continue for this discussion for all the things.
Okay, okay, that sounds also great. So we'll be very grateful if you stay for that long, for another hour, to answer those questions and have some deeper discussions and give us more details about the model. In that case, we're going to continue to our second paper, which is about the Greater Paris model, presented by Sylvie Gaida. So now, Sylvie, I just hand it to you. You can share your screen now.
Yes, I will do that. Just a second. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay.
It's perfect. So that you are on the presentation mode.
Sorry?
It's all perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So, so I will present you a project that we are doing together with Tomás de la Barra, who is the developer of the Tranus model. It's about the evaluation of the long-term impacts of the Grand Paris Express project. I have to say, first of all, that it is a work in progress. So on the contrary of the Beijing model, I'm not able yet to present you results from far because we are at the calibration stage. So my presentation will be more on the context, on the objectives of the project, the public transport project itself, and also on the overall methodological framework, but no results yet, unfortunately. So I've seen this morning that you had in the previous session at least one other presentation on the Grand Paris Express project. So maybe this is things that you know already, but just as a reminder, it's a really huge public transport project of automatic metro in and around Paris. So this is the Paris agglomeration, and the blue lines are the new lines, 200 kilometers of automated new lines, 4 new lines, 1 extended line, 68 new stations, and an expected service frequency of 2 to 3 minutes. And the investment cost is about 36 billion euros. So the objective of this huge scale, large scale project is to better serve the second suburban ring around Paris. And in the same time, it is an opportunity for new developments around the stations, new poles for employment, for culture, for all types of equipment. So I was really impressed by the scale of the Beijing projects. Of course, 21.5 million inhabitants. It is almost twice the population of the Île-de-France region. But okay, here we are speaking about 200 kilometers of new lines, which is almost multiplying by 2 the current number of subway lines. But it is yet far from the 2,000 and something kilometers for the public transport in Beijing, of course. So this is a few further figures. 2 million travelers daily. 80% of the new stations will be connected to the existing public transport, either RER, the Express Regional Railway, Metro, tram, and 90% will be underground. And also, which is something which is worthwhile noting, it is that the new project, the Grand Paris Express, will represent important travel time savings for some people. For example, some examples are given here, if you can see them. And for some people, it represents 20 or more than 20 minutes per trip as a travel time savings. So it could really change the things. As I said, it is also an opportunity for new poles, for innovation in urbanism, and also it is not really, it is not stated as TOD, but it is the same approach. I could see again beyond the scale comparison, it's not the same scale, but I could see similarities with the Beijing planning and master plan, both for transport and for regional planning. So there is the willingness to really densify around the new Grand Paris Express station, GPE stations. This is just to illustrate, not a bit the issues. Here is the work site of one of the future GPE stations, 50 meters at a depth of 50 meters. And okay, it will be a very big new stations because it is at the connection of two of the new lines, 14 and 15. And this is what is called in French a tunnelier, which is a kind of tunneling machine. And when the works will be really in the most critical period, there will be 20 of these machines working simultaneously on the work sites. So as I said, you had a previous presentation on the Grand Paris Express because the Société du Grand Paris, which is the public company which is managing the project, had launched previously 3 LUTI models, land use transport interaction models. One which was developed by the team Paul Waddell and André De Palma with the Urban Sim software. The second one was developed by French modelers, Delons et Piron, who developed a specific model which was called Pirandello. And the third one was developed by Alex Anas, and I thought you had a presentation on this one. But at the end of the story, so in this stage, Stratec, our company, was not involved in these works, but at the end of this research work, of these 3 parallel studies, the Société du Grand Paris decided to keep the Urban Sim model as its official model for further work, or to publish it decided to keep the results of this model as the official results to be published. Now, the current study, what is the objective of the current study? It is to model longer term effects. What does it mean, longer terms? The 3 previous models, they went until 2030, maybe a bit more, but the final results were projection of employment and jobs and population at the horizon 2030. So it is I would not say close, but it's not so far from the current situation. And the question is, what would be the impacts of such a project if we go much further? The idea is to go until something like 50, 70, or even 100 years further. It means that the population, for example, the number of inhabitants would be much more than today. It means that the public transport development will continue. Now, there will be more further new infrastructures. There might be changes in mobility behavior. Some technologies, not only the electric cars, but maybe the autonomous cars, the transport on demand, etc., will come on the market. So what would be the socio-economic, environmental effects of the Grand Paris if we try to assess them to such a faraway horizon? This is just to show you the change in population, the changes in population and in number of jobs. The base year of the model that we are developing is 2016. So in Ile-de-France, there were 12.3 million inhabitants and 5.7 million jobs at that time in the Ile-de-France region. And these are the official projections for population and for jobs at 2035, according to two different scenarios, which are scenarios about housing policies. So a more reinforced housing construction policy, or a lower policy in terms of housing constructions. But you see that in 2035, it could go up to 13.5 million inhabitants, which means already a difference of more than 1 million. And okay, if we go until 2050 or 2070, it's still more, of course. So the question is long-term development of population and employment, development of public transport infrastructure, development of soft transportation modes like walk and cycling, and maybe what we call micro-mobility here, like the trottinette and things like that. And the other innovative mobility patterns that I mentioned before, transport on demand, etc. The real question is not to try to forecast what will be the Paris or the Ile-de-France in 100 years, but what will be the contribution of the GPE to the overall community objectives if we look to such a long term in terms of environment, decarbonization, smoother mobility, better quality of life, equity between the transport user and between the residents, between the commuters, etc. And the results of this model, the Tranus model, are aimed to be introduced in a later step in a cost-benefit analysis and in a carbon audit. In fact, the question is, okay, if we look further, will we see more benefits or less benefits to the project? The indicators that we will analyze are, this is something classical. They will be location of population and employment, the average density, is there more spread or more concentration, and what about the model shares and the distance traveled, etc. So this slide is about the usual Tranus approach framework. I don't know, I'm sorry, but I didn't know in the audience whether people would be used or not with the Tranus framework. So just in a word, the main principle of the Tranus modeling system, it is an aggregated model. So we are working with zones and not with individuals. It's, for example, it's a big difference compared to the urban scene framework. It's an equilibrium model. So the assumption is that at each step, for example, every 5 years, there is an equilibrium between the players, the components, between supply and demand, etc., which is an assumption, a kind of mathematical approximation, because in real life there is never such an equilibrium, but there is a trend towards an equilibrium. One of the underlying theories of Tranus is the economy of the economic base. So, which means that in a city you have some basic activity sectors which attract people, which attract in turn other new services, which attract other people because these services need labor force, etc., etc. So there is a kind of iterative process, which is very well known from long time ago. And this is one of the basic underlying theory of Tranus. Another formalism, mathematical formalism, which is used in Tranus, and you will see a bit more details in a later slide. It is the input-output matrix, because in Tranus, the relationships between the households and the activity sectors are represented, are modeled through this formalism, input-output matrix and consumption-production relationships. There is an explicit simulation of the land market or housing market or build-up area market with supply and demand equilibrium through the prices. And finally, final important theory, which is on which Tranus is based, is the random utility theory at different levels for the location choice, for the mode choice, for the route choice. The theory of the discrete choice models and random utility theory are used within Tranus. Okay. I'm sorry if it's too short. I'm sorry if it's too long, but voilà, it's a quick overview on some theories on which Tranus is based. Now, what is important to know, it is the challenge is, I'm coming back now to our project. The challenge is both to model a system at a very long horizon and both to make it in a simplified way. So why simplified? Because the one very pragmatic reason is that we have to meet the objectives of the study in the available resources. Voilà, we are a consultancy, we are not a university. And the parti pris, the choice of both of the client and of our consultancy was that clearly we do not need for detailed forecasts, but what we need is to get the right elasticities. And this is I guess a big challenge, because it's not easy to check the elasticities in this kind of land use transport integrated model. So for us, it is critical to properly model the mechanisms, the interactions, the right elasticity in order to have the right order of magnitude of the effects. But of course, it's not important to have detailed forecasts for the future horizon, and it's not even important to reconstitute with much accuracy the base situation. More practically, what means a simplified model here? First, the study area. I have not yet show you a map, but okay, I will show you just a bit later. It's large enough, so it means that the exchanges, for example, in terms of commuters between the study area and the outside, the rest of France, are minor, quite minor, and we intend to model them on an approximate way. The zoning system is disaggregated, but to a certain extent. The average weight per zone is 120,000 persons per zone. The public transport network is modeled in a schematic way, but not as schematic as you could think. The home to school trips are modeled exogenously. Also, the entering commuter trips and the outgoing commuter trips from outside the study area are modeled also exogenously because of this first point. There will be no modeling of the freight transport. And we think that parameters have to be robust, but to some extent they do not need to be specific to each segment, or okay, we think that we can fix some of them just by analogy based on our experience, based on the experience of Tomás, etc. So once again, the challenge is to get the right elasticity, but not precisely the 2016 situation. So, as I said, it's a work in progress. Now we are in the stage of finalizing the land use submodel calibration and the transport submodel calibration. The next step will be to put the two submodels together to get the full LUTI model, to build the reference situation at future horizon, which will not be an easy task, I think, and then to finalize, to simulate the situation with the Grand Paris Express project. So, the study area, this is France, of course. The study area is the one surrounded in blue, and the white, inside the one surrounded in blue, the white one is the Île-de-France region. So that's why I said that the study area is big enough. In the Île-de-France itself, there is of course Paris plus already 7 other départements. And we also included in the study area some surrounding areas which have a big number of commuters living in those areas and working in the France. And altogether, we divided the study area in 126 zones, and the rest of France is divided in 21 zones. Here you see the surrounding areas that we included in the study area. These are figures from 2014, and you see that there are big flows, commuting flows, exchanges between these areas and the Île-de-France. That is why we included. But outside of this study area, the remaining flows, the remaining exchanges are really minor. That is why I was saying that, okay, we don't think it's a big issue if the modeling of these remaining flows is made with less accuracy, I would say. Okay, here you have just a view on the zoning system. As I said, 126 zones for the study area and 21 for the remaining external zones. And zoom once more, zoom. Next, the segmentations of the households and the segmentation of the activity sector. So again, I don't know to what extent you are used with TRANUS, but you have to define at the very beginning of the modeling process to define economic activity sectors, household categories, and land types. Our segmentation is as follows: 9 activity sectors, 8 types of household, and 4 land types. The type of households, the categories of household are based on the household size and composition and the social professional category of the reference person of the household. Economic activity sectors and households can consume the 4 types of land and compete for these land based on the price of the land. In the TRANUS, you have the concept of exogenous and induced activity sectors, and the same for household types. In use mean that they will be they are produced by the local demand, the demand emerging from the study area, and exogenous, that they are coming in the study area, they are growing or decreasing, but not by a local effect, but from an external decision, a decision coming from the environment, from the outside of the study area. So this is our classification, our segmentation, and you can see that the total induced sectors represent about 58% of the total jobs in 2016, and the exogenous activity sectors represent 42% of the total number of jobs in 2016. It means, what does it mean? It means that in Tranus, in the model, when we will put the public transport infrastructure, these 58% will relocate according to the new accessibilities in the region, in the city and the region, and according to the prices and according to the new accessibilities. Oh, okay, this is just the detailed table with the official business sector classification and how we grouped into our 9 segments. The same for the household segmentation. The household segmentation, we have eight type of households altogether, and the induced households represent close to 70% of the total number of households in 2016, and the exogenous household type 30%. The exogenous household types, again, are the households who will not locate endogenously in the model as a consequence of accessibility changes or as a consequence of price changes, on the contrary of the induced household. The induced households, we have defined them as households with at least one active person, which means one commuter, because usually this assumption is made, they will be more sensitive to accessibility changes than students. These are households with only students, students living outside the parental home, or households made up of only retired or inactive people. These 6 types of households are subdivided into, according to the number of person, one or more than one, and according to the socio-professional level or qualification of the reference person in the household. What type of land data we used? We used 2 different types of data for the Île-de-France area and for the areas outside Île-de-France, because there are much more data on the Île-de-France and more easily accessible. There is some big database for France, for Île-de-France, which is called the MOS, Mode d'Occupation du Sol, a kind of official big database for land use in Île-de-France, with the subdivision into 11 categories, and we kept 4 categories. And for the rest of the study area, we used simply Corinne land cover, which is more accurate, but okay, we have no better solution, no better option. So it's based on satellite imagery and remote imagery, and we use this to to model the current land use for this area. We are also using other planning documents like master plans, etc., for the current situation, and also for what is planned, what is authorized or forbidden for the next years. I mentioned one basic component of a Tranus model, which is the input-output matrix. So here you have a kind of illustration if you are interested in what it is more practically. As I said, it represents the production-consumption relationships between the city players. What does it mean between the relationships between the city players? There are, for example, two types of relationships which are modeled. The first one is the production of labor force by household. And this labor force is used by each of the activity sector. So you have a production consumption matrix with each household category, each activity sector, and one coefficient of consumption, which is computed from statistics, from national surveys on labor forces, national statistics, or even regional statistics, etc. A second kind of relationships which is computed as a basic component is another production consumption relationships. This time it is people in the households consuming services and retail, services and goods from different activity sectors. And again, you have one parameter for the current situation, the 2016 situation. And again, this parameter is computed from, for example, the National Survey on Household Consumption, and also some statistics or of the Institut Paris Région, Regional Planning Office, etc. Then a few slides on the transport model. Okay, again, it is simplified, but it is not as simplified as you could imagine. The road network has been developed from OpenStreetMap. It includes different type of roads, and it was easy to develop the road network because the new version of Tranus is fully integrated with QGIS, the GIS. So there is a version called QTranus, which is integrated with the QGIS, and this makes things much easier to model from scratch a road network. The public transport network resumes the main components of the Île-de-France public transport system, the rail lines, high speed, even the high speed line entering the Île-de-France region, tramway, stations and lines, metro, le RER, regional express railway. Only the bus lines are not modeled in detail, but they are just modeled as feeder of the rail system. Altogether, we have about 1,000 links, road links, and 900 public transport links. And here you have a few maps, a few views on the network with closer and closer zoom. I will not read you the legend, but you can see that it is simplified, but it's still a large model. And this is the most detailed zoom on the Gare du Nord area within Paris. Okay, I think it is, yes, it is the last slide for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvie. So do we have any clarification questions at the moment? Okay, if not, Ying, I will hand over to you to start the discussion. Considering the time, shall we start with the last question? Since Professor Zhao is back online now. Ying, we can't hear you. Yeah, okay, we can.
You can hear me now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think we should carry on with Sylvia's presentation for a little while, and then we could come back to some more general questions, which I think Joe's question for the last session is one of them. And
sure.
So I'll start, and then so if you this is the time to feed the baby, then feed the baby, and then come back and join us for the discussion. Or maybe you could actually just stay online. Zoom actually allows us to do all that, which is great. Sylvia, thank you for a really comprehensive discussion on the Grand Paris project, and this is really informative for us looking at this model. And perhaps if we could start with a question to clarify that you have many different model components, right? So, and in order for the cost-benefit analysis and the carbon audit to be carried out within this process, what are the broader elements that is going to be modeled in addition to the land use model? Land use model, of course, is key because it can inform on the long-term travel demand and so on.
You mean the main components which will be introduced in the carbon audit and the cost-benefit analysis? So so it will be very classical, I guess. It will be the changes in time, travel time savings, and of course, if you make the cost-benefit analysis with a simple transport model, there is several changes, several effects that you miss. And this is the idea of making a cost-benefit analysis with an integrated land use transport model. If you don't use the land use part, you miss the changes in the distance, in the traveled distance. You miss the changes in the location, and which also will contribute to a change in the distance, of course. You miss even a change in the type of housing, from low density to high density housing with different coefficients in terms of emission. So if you, of course, it's what we do usually. We calculate cost benefit and socio-economic indicators just from a transport model. But we know, we are well aware that we miss a part of the effects. So here, the intention is to include all these effects, including the relocation and what it will change in terms of environmental, social, and economic issues. So,
and this connects well with Professor Michael Wegner's question, which is about the environmental indicators. Yeah, so for environmental audits or analysis, are the model outputs from both models going to be used, or how are you going to do that? This is actually on the in the Q&A under open questions.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Ying, but I was in the same time I was reading the questions, so I was not able to listen to you in the same time that I was reading. But I've seen the question from Michael Wegner about the environmental indicators. I have to know that I am not able to precisely answer to that question, because I think that we will not limit to the transport indicators, but also to some indicators related to the housing and to the urbanism. In another project, without land use transport model, Stratec carried out a very detailed carbon audit of the GPE project, and it was made without Tranus model. It was made without LUTI model, but it took into account the densification policy. You see, and so
yeah,
we will do the same kind of thing. I've seen another question of Martial Echenique about, please give some figures about the distance traveled and the more chairs, etc. I fully agree that I should have done that, but I cannot. I cannot give you the model share in Ile-de-France and in Paris, but I just may say that the share of the public transport must be important, but I have no the figures that way.
I was last year actually attending a meeting in Saint-Denis, just outside this the inside zone of Paris. And it's one of the areas that the government actually is like to invest a lot more. And I presume that the challenges are very different between the zone of the historic Paris, which is probably about 2 million people, versus the people who are outside. And the problem probably is very, very complicated because in terms of transports, the access to good quality public transports may be different. And secondly, the socioeconomic profile of the population can also be very different as well.
Yes.
Is that correct?
About the transport, one of the clear objectives of the project, the Grand Paris Express project, is to improve significantly the accessibility of the poles or the territories in this second suburban ring that I showed on the first map, because and to also to allow the people living there to go from one pole to another pole without going through Paris. Because now we are at the 21st century and still you need to go through Paris from go to north to south or east to west. And so this is a big change. And yes, and there is also, I said there is, they want to catch the opportunity to really innovate on the urban planning field, but also, as you said, to improve socioeconomic issues. This is clear. For example, there is one well-known example in the south, in the new line in the south, line number 18, which is called Saclay. I don't know if you have heard about it. So it was just agriculture fields some years ago, and they wanted to make it the new research and development and university research center. And they are even delocalizing some Parisian centers from the city center to this place. So really there is a very big ambition in this project, behind this project.
I could see that. Now, one of the important effects of railway transport would be agglomeration economics, right? Because people could actually be attracted to certain locations for jobs and housing. Now, here, Professor Francisco Martinez have a question to ask you about, in the land use model, whether you have connections already between agglomeration economies or agglomeration effects and the location patterns. So, for example, different patterns of location may give you different agglomeration effects. So spreading the jobs across the region is different from concentrating them in particular places.
Sorry, I didn't catch.
The question is to do with
patterns with. Sorry, maybe I should read. I should read the question.
Question in different order. This is the last one currently in the open list.
If you look for elasticity, how do you define? I think that agglomeration economies is yet one step further. Agglomeration economies, you mean really the increase in productivity between because of more agglomerations. This is for me agglomeration economies. It's so it's really improving the productivity of the activity sectors. Here we are just improving the functioning of the urban system. I don't think that we will go until real improving the production cost of a unit of whatever in this Tranus model.
This is maybe.
I don't know if I really answer the question, but
well, maybe this is a good point to introduce the question of Professor Joe Ferreira, who actually a question that could apply to both of you. If you go to the allegedly answered number 2, which says, this is Joe who is saying, the main differences among the scenarios seem to be focusing on the density increase, which is allowed at different locations. This is Beijing, right? So this is also a question for Professor Mao and Professor Zhao. To what extent do your models address the type of land use that will constitute this density? So basically, in different places, there could be a different kind of layout of the different land uses, so different types of employment. And I saw from your presentation earlier, Sylvia, you have actually how many types of employment do you have already? Just remind us.
Something like 9.
And in Beijing, I think there are also 9 and plus 4 types of business floor space type. And you have different business floor types as well, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And for offices and service and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joe's question is that what are the considerations of the clusters of these land uses around each station? Right. And maybe this is a question for Professor Zhao if he's around. I'm not sure actually whether he can hear us at this moment.
Now I'm alive.
Okay. So make yourself seen, and then perhaps you could talk about the design considerations of how to do mixed land use around these stations.
do we still have time? Yeah.
Well, if you briefly answer, we'll
Okay.
have time.
Okay, we have.
And then we can go to the other question.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. We have several land use type, including residence, and some business land use, including manufacturer, office, commercial, warehouse, and civil service like school, hospital. And from Master Plan 2035 of Beijing, we got the land use data in each zone and use this as a baseline scenario. And we have two types of test scenarios to compare with baseline. The first is keep the proportion of land use fixed as same as baseline, and the increase of FAR or increase of building stock on every land use type is same. So we don't change residence land to office or other type of land. So the land use is fixed in each scenarios. And in order to build a job polycentric centers in suburb, we design a second type of scenario. That is FAR increase together with job priority. So we keep housing stock constrained and put the additional floor space only to office, commercial, or other enterprise building. But the proportion is as same as the master plan of Beijing. So in one sentence that we don't change the land use, only change the floor space. This is what we did in our model. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of activities again that they're going to use this kind of floor space that is kept flexible at the moment. Is that right?
Sorry, I can't hear clearly. Yeah.
What I was saying is that the activities that will occupy the floor space, they can change over time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in fact, this is actually one of the features of the recursive spatial equilibrium model, where the supply of floor space is predicted through activities that are modeled in the previous time period.
Yeah. But it is the same in a Tranus model. You don't define the land space with the space which will be used, but you define for each horizon and in each zone the available land use, the amount of hectares which can be built up, and in which type of for which type of use it can be built up. So you define the potential, the available capacity, and then the price is going up and down according to the demand, and different actors are competing for the same land. So
that's right. And then this is very much up to the market to decide in each time period.
But of course, now, we could subdivide into more segments.
Well, given there is data and also there's time of the day, right? There are only 24 hours of time each day, so that and working time probably cannot exceed that in any way. Now, this will partly answer Naslie's question, which is to say how one could take into account of the enormous uncertainties over the lifetime of a rail project, which Sylvia correctly pointed out that is over 100 years. In fact, in London, it's over 150 years already. Now, as the last question, if you could briefly say what other uncertainties you may have already addressed, or the uncertainties you currently actually don't even want to look at. So, but these uncertainties must be enormous, especially for public transport systems, which are still not fully recovering from the pandemic? Sylvia.
It's a question to me. I think first we will deal with uncertainties as you always deal with uncertainties in transport consultancies. It means by scenarios. You make more scenarios instead of making just one central scenario. The second thing is, for me, one question is about autonomous cars, when they will be generalized in cities, and what will be the effect on congestion. Because, okay, electric car will solve the issue of environment, but not the problem of congestion and not the problem of time losses for the users, which is hundreds of millions of euros in stake. So with the transporting on demand and the autonomous cars go together, if you have an expert, an avid expert, an expert consensus, I'm very keen to receive it. Because I think that there is much uncertainty there.
Particularly in the earlier sessions, Professor Karl Kokelman and Professor Rolf Merkel have looked at this for the possible impacts of autonomous cars, and found that it could particularly affect bus transport. And the effect on rail transport may be more uncertain, especially for the longer distance trips. But potentially it could actually help by providing better access to stations. So, but those are the issues that we like to continue to address in this community. Professor Zhao, any final words on this issue?
I think that you talked about, Sylvia said something about electric vehicles. You know that in China we have do some new works about self-driving car. I think this is a self-driving electric car, and we also think that the aggregate transport like a tube or a subway, together with a door-to-door, is very convenient self-driving car. So what I always think that what kind of impact will occur when the self-driving car go into every family or share the car, and this is I think individual, and this individual and its capacity or accessibility is much more than the normal car. It's much better than the normal car. So we often have a joke that if the Beijing's subway system will not be much better in the future, it may be replaced by some kind of self-driving car. It is very much convenient. Will this occur in the future?
Well, there could be actually scenarios of a perfect storm actually for public transport at some point. Professor Mao, any final thoughts?
And I just think the question from the Professor Alfarella, and I think for the urban planner, we will think some new kind of land use type. And traditionally, we always use the two-dimension map for show the land use type and pattern. But today, since we're talking for the underground, the subway and the metro system, the three-dimension land use type we should think about in coming future. Thank you.
So these are the kind of dimensions that the modelers at the urban and regional scale probably have to take note. Right, and I just received in the Q&A there is a kind message from Joe Ferreira saying that he really enjoyed this discussion, and he really liked to perhaps to look at the polycentric development issues going forward. Unfortunately, he cannot join us for the post-session discussion. And Sylvia, if you would have time, so we would invite you to join the discussion after this session if you are available, right? So for Professor Mao and Professor Zhao, I think it's really too much for us.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Yeah, so I think this will be a good time to thank all of the three speakers, Sylvia, Professor Mao, and Professor Zhao, and for a fascinating session on these new initiatives in large city regions. And I hope this discussion will continue in the post-session. And yeah, maybe you could copy the Zoom link actually onto the chat box so people can take it from there. And as we do that, maybe I should also ask Jamil, who is our co-convener, whether there are any other thoughts that that we may have missed, or anything you would like to say, Jamil?
I do have a quick question, but maybe we can bring it to the informal session.
Okay, yeah. So join us for the session. Yeah, maybe you could, or you have done it on the chat box, just in case.
No,
people...
I'm doing it now.
Yeah, and those who have already got the link, they could have a quick break and then come and join us in that session. So once this finishes, we'll open up that session so that colleagues who have got time, this is not obligatory in any way. I'm just copying this link myself. Then we could actually see you there, and we could talk further on some of these issues. And perhaps this will be a good moment to thank all the speakers, and then to close the session. We look forward to seeing you in session 10 on Thursday of this week, where we will have Professor Eric Miller from University of Toronto to look at some of the more detailed agent-based simulation in relation to the COVID-19 and other urban disruptions, and also a changed paper from Professor Happenstall and Professor Mellison's session, both of them due to effects of the COVID-19 on the schools, and that they have to actually look after the children. So therefore, we have replaced this second session with a paper on modeling by Professor Robin Morfitt. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday's session. Meanwhile, I hope to see those colleagues who can join us for the post-session on the other side, basically, so in the other Zoom room. And thank you. Yeah, maybe you could now close this session, and I'll see you there.
Okay, bye.
Organizers.
Okay, thank you.